Welcome, everyone, to Asian Pacific Voices Radio, where you will find stimulating conversations about diverse topics and stories that impact our Asian Pacific American communities. I'm Sasha Fu, your podcast host. And today we have the honor of speaking to Susan Zhang. She is a classically trained pianist and also the co-founder and director of the Concert Truck, which is a very novel way of bringing classical music to many different audiences because it is, in essence, a concert hall on wheels. Not only has Susan performed here in North America, but she's performed in Europe and Asia. And as I said, she has come up with this wonderful idea to make classical music more accessible to more communities through the success of the Concert Truck. Hi, Susan, and welcome to our broadcast. I know you're over there in Baltimore, Maryland today.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks so much for having me today.
Tell us a little bit about, so many things to talk about, but let's start at the beginning with where you grew up and a little bit about your family history and how you developed a love of music.
Sure. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, but we didn't stay there for very long. We moved to Vancouver, BC, when I was about 7 months old, and I lived there for the first 7 years of my life. And then after that, we moved to Augusta, Georgia, which is where I spent the rest of my childhood. And my parents are both scientists, and they immigrated here from China.
When did you discover you had a gift and a real passion for the piano?
So I think, like most of the Asian kids around me when I was young, I was forced to play the piano, I will say. It was one of those things where all of my friends were doing it, so my parents thought it would be a good thing for me to teach me a skill, to have discipline, and it would be good on a college application. But little did they know, after some period of time, I want to say probably, in my early teens or around that time, I really started to fall in love with it. I think in Augusta, there were not many other people who played piano, and it did make me feel kind of like I had my own thing. And it was just something that I felt like was extremely engrossing. I loved the music, and it was something that I could just really focus on. And I kind of got addicted to this idea of continued mastery from a young age. So,
were your parents encouraging when they saw how serious you were about pursuing a career in music?
I think my parents have always been supportive. I wouldn't say that this was their number one choice. I think originally they had wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer, something that was a little more stable income-wise. But when I told them that I decided to do it, there's a little bit of pushback, but for the most part, they've been extremely supportive of my career choice.
I can identify with a lot of that because I too, Susan, grew up learning how to play the piano, but unlike you, I was not good at it. And so I just quit after about 2 years. So I'm one of those, Chinese American kids who was forced to take piano lessons, couldn't really hang. So, ended up dropping out after 2 years. So I have a great deal of admiration for you.
You can always come back to it. It's always there. It'll be there for the rest of your life. And if it's an itch you want to scratch eventually, you can always come back to it.
Well, I don't know. I think some of us are innately talented and some of us are not. And enough about me. Let's get back to you. Where did you study piano seriously after you left high school? You got out of Augusta, Georgia, and then you went to the University of South Carolina.
Yes. Yeah. When I was about 15, I went to a piano festival called the Southeastern Piano Festival that was held in the University of South Carolina. And it was co-founded by my teacher who I ended up studying with in undergrad, Marina Lamazov. And so I finished my undergraduate degree with her. And she was just such a wonderful, wonderful teacher. And she and I are are very close. She's almost like a second mother to me. And so after that, I went to the Eastman School of Music, which is where my teacher had studied, and I did my master's there. I went back to South Carolina to do a degree with Marina and Joseph Rockers. And then I went to Peabody, and I stayed there with Boris Lutsky. My Eastman professor was Enrico Elise, sorry, I forgot to mention his name. But yeah, and at Peabody, I studied with Boris Lutsky, and that's kind of how I ended up in Baltimore. I just never really left after that.
So, a lot of people, of course, are serious about piano or
Mm-hmm.
learning a particular instrument and performing, as you were, but
Yeah.
they don't make that pivot as you did to coming up with this novel idea of the concert truck. What inspired this idea that you were going to bring a mobile concert hall to communities all around America? What inspired this?
Well, when I was at Eastman, which was a very intense place, rigorous place to study,
Hmm.
we were really kind of insulated. We just kind of put our heads down and practice. They have this motto. It was the eat, sleep, and practice. It's like the Eastman motto. And I loved that. I really loved being immersed in music. I did leave my degree feeling like I wanted to know how to share what I do with the community at large and how what I do affects society, because I knew that I really love the music, but I just always had this impression that classical music and just the rest of the world was that there's a separation. It wasn't really in like the public lexicon or anything, and so
Hmm.
I really wanted to find out a way to bring it to people. And my business partner at the time actually came up with the idea. He was traveling with a grandfather, and they were on a boat. And I think when he would stop at towns to practice in churches, he noticed that people were very curious and they would gather. And when he pitched this idea to me, it felt like it was a way to answer some of those questions that I had after school. And at the time, we were at the University of South Carolina, and I was working with an entrepreneurship professor there, David Cutler, who really made me feel like I could do anything. He always had these very out of the box ideas, and there was a grant there that they had just started for these entrepreneurial ideas, and I applied for it and we won. And so then we got our seed money for creating our first prototype, and that was really fun. We just it was nothing like what it is now. We kind of built this platform that came out of a budget truck. It was not pretty, but we did test the concept. We did 8 concerts in Columbia, South Carolina, at schools and children's homes and public spaces, and it was a huge hit. So after that, we started to develop the concept more and more.
So let me ask you a little bit about that first prototype. Where do you go shopping
Sure.
for a truck like that? And how much money did you need to actually build this prototype?
So we rented the budget truck. We didn't
Okay.
have a truck at that time. We really just wanted to test the concepts and see if we could do these
Hmm.
mobile outdoor concerts. And so we rented that truck, and we spent most of the money building a platform that would come out of the back of the truck. And in my mind, I wanted like an acoustic grand piano. So we really built that platform out. It was like a deck. Like it was so much wood. It was very sturdy, and we ended up not putting an acoustic grand piano on the truck. It ended up being a digital upright. So we kind of unnecessarily built that out. But after we did test the concept, I met a guy. His name is Nicholas King, who's just one of my dear friends now. But I remember pitching this idea to him, and then a year later, he called me and he told me that he had access to a truck that was being retired and could be donated to us. And so then at that point, Nick and our best friend, John Holloway, flew all the way to California to retrieve it, drove back in about 40 hours, and they performed surgery on it in South Carolina with a good friend of ours. And then it kind of became the concert truck that we have
Susan, to
today.
be a little bit more clear, the piano that you are using now in your concerts in the truck, is this a conventional piano or has it been specially outfitted?
So this is, it's actually a digital instrument made by Roland, and it's quite sensitive, especially for being a digital instrument. So we really like it. But yeah, in order to perform outdoors, especially the amount that we do, there's just no way we could get an acoustic on there and have to set it up and tune it every single time. So we have the next best thing, which I think works quite well.
You started in, I think, what is it, 2015?
2015 is when we wrote that grant application, and then we had our first run in the spring of 2016.
Okay. So you also went through the pandemic. What
We
was
did,
that like
yes.
for you?
Well, the pandemic was an interesting time because at the very beginning, we didn't know it was safe, and we were actually scheduled to do a residency in North Carolina, and instead of going down for that, we ended up making a web series that was like for children, and we felt like that was the only safe thing that we can do. And then I think over time we figured out that outdoors was safe, and that's actually when we took off. And we kind of got the idea for the business model we have now when the Kennedy Center reached out to us. It was their Washington National Opera, the K. Fritz Young Artist Program. They reached out to us and just to see if they could use the truck, if they could collaborate with us, and we ended up doing a couple residencies with them, and it was really a lot of fun. And then after that, we were put in touch with the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, and that was the first time we did a long-term residency where we were performing on our truck with the symphony members. And since then, we've been working with music and arts organizations across the country to feature their artists, to perform, and to share music with their respective communities.
Give me an idea of the kinds or varieties of places and settings and venues where you've given your concerts in the truck.
Sure. So we will go to more typical outreach sorts of venues, such as schools and assisted living centers. We also go to places with high foot traffic that may be scenic, so like a park or a town square. And we also do neighborhood concerts. We might do like a donor event for an organization. So it's a big variety of places.
Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of reception you received since you started doing this back in 2016? I'm sure it varies in terms of where you're performing, the kinds of communities that you're reaching, maybe even the kind of program that you're presenting.
Generally, it's been met very positively. There's a novelty about the truck that I think people are surprised by, and we program music that we love. So I think whenever you love the music you're playing, you always play it a little, you give it a little extra something. And I think audiences respond to that. Going back to the pandemic, as I mentioned, we were in Dallas, and I just remember there's this one concert where we performed, and this woman came up to us afterwards, and she was in tears because she hadn't been to a live concert, and she hadn't been with people in months. And it was one of those moments that made me realize how important it is to have the arts and to do what we do, and to have communal spaces and ways of sharing art with people.
Yeah, music does bring people together, and especially during
Absolutely.
that time, which was very lonely and isolating for a lot of people.
Exactly.
You mentioned that you bring music, you produce music that you love, that you have a personal connection to. What are some examples of the music that you feel people can connect to as well?
Oh my gosh. It's hard for me to there's just been so many pieces that we've performed that I really love. We started out with a four hands repertoire because it was me and my business partner who is also a pianist. So I will say Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue always is a hit. I think it's recognizable by people. It's so much fun to listen to. It's a lot of fun to play. So we try to program that as much as we can. There's just so many pieces that I've really gotten to know and love. There's a lot of chamber music by Mendelssohn and Brahms that I've played for the first time on the truck. And right now I'm learning a trio by an Armenian composer, Babajanian, and I'm really having a lot of fun learning that. But yeah, it's like this opportunity to play all of the things I've always wanted to play with people I've always wanted to play those pieces with. So.
In order to keep this program going, do you rely on donors, or how do you get funded?
In general, we work with presenters who bring us in. So there's a kind of like a performance fee for that. And a presenter will bring us in for anywhere from a week to a month. And each week we will perform 7 shows. And that's the model that we use.
Are most of these shows free? I mean, the audience members aren't being made to. Okay, that's great. I mean, that
generally,
makes it even
yes.
more accessible.
Not always, but for the most part, usually that's a presenter decision.
Take me through a typical day in the life of you traveling in the truck, setting up for a concert. Tell me what that's like.
Yeah, when I'm on the road, it's really go because you kind of wake up and then you're going and then you and then you finish. So I would say my typical day, I get up early, eat some breakfast. On our first day that we're there, we usually have an operational training session, so that the people we're working with know how to basically set up the truck and also work audio while we're performing. And then that day will also be a rehearsal day. So if I'm performing with people I've not performed with before, then we will rehearse our program for the rest of the week. And so on active days, it's the same thing. Get up early, eat breakfast. I have to eat breakfast. I'm like one of those people who needs to eat.
Breakfast of champions.
I know. I'm like, I need 3 square meals a day. It's like, that's how I've been trained. But we usually have 2 activations a day. So we'll get to a venue, figure out where we need to park, set up, perform the concert, pack up, drive to the next venue, and probably have a meal or so in between, do the same thing. And then we're usually done for the evening. And then sometimes I'll go home and do a little extra work, do some extra practicing. And sometimes I'll try to explore the city where I am. It's been a real privilege to be able to see the country at the best times of the year because we're outdoors. So I do try to make some time to eat the food that the town's known for the best and to go do things around in the city.
I bet you've been into some interesting roadside diners.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of. I can't even name all of the diners I've been to.
Well, you said you've performed in places like Dallas, which is, of course, a big city. What about smaller towns, rural communities?
Sure,
I think classical music in general has a reputation as being rather highbrow, for elites. And so perhaps, certain kinds of people wouldn't like classical music. I know you're trying to explode those misconceptions.
Right, exactly. Yes, we have played in smaller areas. And even when we go to bigger cities, sometimes we do runouts, like it could be like even an hour away, to share music with like a surrounding area. It might be a smaller town. But we also work with presenters in smaller areas as well.
Have you encountered anything kind of unusual? I mean, you talked about the woman who came to you in tears during COVID.
Yeah.
Maybe some other unusual, maybe even funny reactions from kids, or just something that, like, oh my gosh, I had no idea this would spark that kind of reaction.
The kids are the best, honestly, because they're just so frank about how they feel about things. Yeah, we do this. We try to make our educational concerts interactive, and we do this one thing where we'll bring like 4 kids up to the stage and they tell a story. And so it's just like each person says one line and they pass the mic around, and then somebody improvises music to that in the background. So the kids react to the music and the musician reacts to the kids. And it's really fun and cute. And yeah, some of the stories we've gotten have been pretty outrageous. I'm trying to think. There was a period where it was like all anybody would talk about was Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. As we had so many stories about that. And there's a memorable story. It was one of my favorite ones where there was like a piece of bacon that ate itself and then like farted its way into outer space. It's just like.
So I would like to hear how did the piano narrative on that one go? Do you remember?
I think it was just some like rumbling in the bass. like loud grace notes. Yeah. I have that recording somewhere.
I love it. Well, kids have the craziest, funniest, most amusing imagination. So I'm sure that you have a lot of fun with
it. It was amazing. Oh, yes, absolutely.
I think that there's that saying, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Do you see other people taking your concept and say, well, we can do that. Well, maybe we'll do it with flute, or maybe we'll do it with the chamber music orchestra or something?
We've worked with wind instruments for sure. Like I mentioned to you, we collaborate with other instrumentalists as well on the truck. But as far as doing exactly what it is that we do with our model, I haven't seen that. I've seen other kinds of platforms or outdoor performance spaces. Even during the pandemic, I think the New York Phil had something called the bandwagon, which I think it was a shipping container. So it was similar, but I think that was like a temporary project. But I don't know of like a business like ours that exists.
What kind of planning goes into this? I imagine, Susan, for instance, if you're in an opera company, they have their seasons planned out 4 or 5 years in advance. They know what singers are going to do. They know what operas are going to put on. Are you planning 4 or 5 years in advance, and where you're going to go and where you're going to get the money and which organizations are going to partner with?
So we are a little more nimble, I would say, than an opera company. I know opera companies and orchestras, they're very large institutions with a lot of moving parts. And when we do get hired, I think because we have a toe in artistic as well as marketing and community service and development even sometimes, that also allows us to be a bit more nimble. And so sometimes we get booked on a later schedule, but I would say we are booking like at least a year out.
And how many concerts now are you doing a year?
Oh, gosh. Well, I say at the height of it, it was probably like, it was over 200 for sure. That was during the pandemic when we were hustling and just saying yes to everything. So now that we have 2 trucks and can kind of split the load, I'm performing a lot less than that, which is more reasonable, I think, on myself, my body, and my brain. Yeah. But I would say it's probably like, it's definitely over 100, maybe like around 150 a year.
Wow. That is very impressive, Susan. My hat's off to you. You've got a lot of energy and initiative. We're going to wrap it up soon, but we do something at the end, what I call the lightning round, where I just shoot out a couple of questions, and they're usually kind of silly and of little consequence, or not, how do you solve, how do you find world peace or anything? They're very silly. So just, answer top of, are you ready to do this? Lightning round?
Okay.
Okay. Favorite snack?
Dark chocolate.
Ooh, okay. Favorite time of day? Mornings, afternoons, evenings?
Mornings.
Mountains, deserts, or oceans?
Mountains.
Favorite pop music star?
Oh gosh. I'm
favorite musical instrument?
Cello.
Favorite musical instrument, not counting the piano, okay?
Cello for sure. Maybe also including the piano.
Oh, okay. If you could spend a year in any country outside of the United States, a year, where would you want to go?
Oh gosh, these are things I never think about. Maybe Spain?
Okay. That sounds Olé.
Everyone seems to love Spain.
If you could hang out for a week with one famous person, living or dead, who would that person be?
I can't answer that question. It's like way too overwhelming. There are too many people.
Well, think about it and get back to us later. Think about it, get back to us later. We'll be here. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up now. I want to thank you, Susan Zhang, for being our guest today on Asian Pacific Voices Radio. And to learn more about Susan Zhang and the Concert Truck, how can our listeners follow you on social media?
You can visit our website at www.theconcerttruck.org, or you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at The Concert Truck. And you can find me at Susan Zhang Piano.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Susan. And we also want to hear from you, our beloved listeners. If you have any suggestions for future guests or topics, be sure to let us know. Reach out to us. And don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and follow us on X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for more inspiring conversations. Asian Pacific Voices Radio is produced by Asian Culture and Media Alliance, or ACMA, which is a nonprofit group dedicated to empowering the Asian and Pacific Islander communities with a voice through the media arts. If you'd like to learn more about ACMA or support our programs here at ACMA, please visit our website at acmasocal.org. Once again, I'm your host, Sasha Fu. Please join us next week for another exciting and hopefully thought-provoking episode of Asian Pacific Voices Radio. Until then, everyone, take care.